So these ultra rare fossils that were just found were found from an a Stegosaurus. So these fossils we'll talk about in just a moment here, why they were so rare and how they were preserved. You can hop right to that via the timestamps below. And after this, that's the first thing we're talking about on the show, and then we'll be talking about giant sloth tunnels, the recovery of black rhino populations, and some new research on restoring plants. So stick around for all that. It's going to be a great show on Ego Show. Hello and welcome to Eco Show. This is a show about ecology, the environment, things generally happening in that space. We'll talk about research, we'll talk about news, we'll talk about the best dinosaurs of all time, all that sort of thing. And starting off our show this week, we are talking about this rare fossil discovery, and what makes this fossil discovery on a Stegosaurus so rare is that it was found complete. For one, it was a complete skeleton or a complete fossil, which is already rare in and of itself. And beyond that, it had skin left. So this wasn't skin that you could still eat or anything like that, but it was skin nonetheless that was found on it, and this was imprinted on the outside of this fossil. The area where this was found was in northern China, and there were lots of good quality fossils like this one that are found in that region. Today, this area is lots of grassland, but back in the time when this Stegosaurus would have died, it would have been a rich forested environment with volcanic activity that they think may have led to the great preservation of this Stegosaurus. So they think that it was preserved because the Stegosaurus died or was knocked into a water body, and then pretty much immediately there was a large volcanic explosion that buried it in ash. And that's because any longer than a little while where this thing would have died, the skin would have started to decompose, but there's not a great deal of evidence of that. So a pretty rare finding that they have here. And to give you an idea of just how impressive fossils can be, they've also been able to find preserved jellyfish in a similar area. And jellyfish are even more, easy to break down than skin would be. So when you have these really strange, interesting conditions, you can preserve these species in a very cool way. So there you go. That was the clickbait. Continuing on with ancient kind of vibes, we've got this article I saw on the BBC, which is about giant sloth tunnels, also called a megafauna paleoburrow. And these are dug by giant sloths or armadillos, and this would have happened 15 million to 10,000 years ago, right around when humans got into the area. Who knows why they went out? Well, before we get into the tunnels too much, so the general idea at the moment is that a lot of stuff, megafauna are these really large animals that existed in North America that many went extinct right around when humans came over, and it's definitely thought that humans had a big impact on the extinction of some of these, but there were also many climate conditions that led to these species being vulnerable to begin with already. So, you've got some megafauna in Africa like giraffes and elephants. So humans didn't knock them out, but the general idea is that yes, humans probably did impact the populations of these, but it was likely also because of climatic conditions, and there was a lot of drought conditions and cold conditions that would have really knocked down populations of these megafauna to begin with. Anywho, so these giant tunnels, which were found in Brazil, are dug out by what's thought to be either these giant sloths or giant armadillos. And the giant sloths are described as being like an elephant-sized hamster, and these tunnels could have stretched back 340 meters, which is about over 3.5 football fields. That can be American football, or that can be European football. Whatever football you want it to be, it's about 3.5 of those fields long, which is a huge ways back. And these are often dug into rock. I'm not particularly sure how solid this rock is. I don't think it's like a granite or anything like that, but it's still really impressive. And when you see these tunnels, images of these tunnels, it does look like really hard rock that these are dug through. And these are thought for a time to have been designed or made by an ancient civilization. And when you see these images, the photos of these, they really look like they would have been dug out. They're very symmetrical. It's smoothed on the inside. So you can think about these big old sloths just for millions and thousands of years, digging these out, going in and out and in and out. And they're pretty remarkable. And these are all around the area down there. They were discovered recently, or rediscovered, but they're talked about in many indigenous stories as being from giant creatures. So colonizer folks seem to think that they were built by ancient civilizations, but then the ancient civilizations that were already there already had their own stories that involve giant creatures digging these out. So it's probably been known for a long time anyhow. So that's what's going on with that. So go start digging yourself a tunnel. Join the giant sloths. Do your own thing. Dig your, maybe there's an area you can go dig a tunnel. It's hard, isn't it? It's a challenging thing. You can't really, you probably have to own the land already. And even that, I don't know if you get, you probably don't have digging rights. You probably need to start doing it in secret. Go to a national park or something like that and start digging out a giant tunnel for you and future generations to have burrows in. I knew about giant sloths before, but giant armadillos are a really cool thing to think about. I feel like giant sloth would freak me out because it kind of has a bear vibe, but I feel like a giant armadillo would be adorable. And when it would roll up and everything, that would be cool. Okay, so our next piece, this is another sort of megafauna. Our next piece of news is on eastern black rhino populations. We've had an eastern black rhino that was born in the Chester Zoo. Now, these black rhinos have a 15-month pregnancy, which is a long time to be pregnant. But when these come out, they are kind of walking around pretty much immediately. So I guess you get a little bit more bang for your buck, especially if you have to have a baby out in the plains and you're a migratory big old mammal. You kind of want your youngling to be able to come out of the womb and be rearing to go. You don't want to have to carry it in a buggy, And Chester Zoo really they're kind of the main one whenever I'm talking on the show about animals being born. Chester Zoo is one of the main ones, so they're part of this. There's sort of what zoos are moving towards now is that they're these captive breeding programs, and they do seem to be having success. Now, the eastern black rhino is critically endangered, and there's only one of 3 black rhino subspecies. Oh no. There's one of 3 black rhino subspecies. I think the other subspecies may be doing okay, but this one, the eastern black rhino, most certainly is very critically endangered. There's less than 600 left. And that number, it may sound like kind of a bit, but I mean, just think about a 15-month pregnancy, and these are not, it's not easy to get that going. So the zoos are doing a good job with these captive breeding programs, and they've recently had a bit of success with reintroducing and doing these captive breeding programs because they're looking at the poo. I was thinking this might have been a better clickbait title. So if I don't think I'll change I don't think of the title. I was gonna clickbait the dinosaur skin stuff, but poo is a pretty good one. I think poo really draws people in. But anyway, so they've had really good success with this breeding program because they're analyzing rhino poo. And why are they analyzing rhino poo, you may ask? Well, I think I've got to make this the clickbait title. I think it's too good. Okay, so they've had breeding success by looking at rhino poo because they can track the hormones of these rhinos, and they can keep track of their breeding cycles and things like that, know when they're ready and fertile, and when they can have good luck with introducing the males and females together and have good outputs for successful breeding programs. I'm not sure if they can do this with all species, but it's a cool one that they can do with this because it's easy to check out an animal's poo compared to having to take blood samples or anything like that. Okay. We'll take a little break. We're slowing it down for a second. Hello, welcome to the show. If you've already been listening to the show, thanks for sticking around. And so we've got the show. It's on YouTube. You can listen to it via Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and I'm pretty sure all the other podcasting platforms. I interact most via Instagram, so that's at henryfromnature. If you want to follow that, I post more stuff relating to the show. You can check that out and get involved and all that good sort of stuff. So that's where the sort of hub for the show is at the moment. And if you have any suggestions or anything, that's always a great place to go to message me directly. Okay, that's the plug for the pod. Now back to it. Okay, welcome to the research section. Nestle up by your firesides in your leather chair. Pull out your leather-bound books, your first editions. You're in the study. You're in the research room. And today in the research room, we're talking about restoration research. Now, this research on restoration is exploring how plant abundance and plant diversity improve when herbivores are kept out of restoration areas on land and on sea. So that basically means keep shit out of your place that's going to eat it. In undisturbed ecosystems, herbivory is not as impactful. So this is to say, when you're doing a restoration project, when you're trying to bring back the plants in a space, you're planting those plants in the ground, and you want to keep out things that are going to be eating them. This may seem very intuitive. However, this research is a global study looking at restoration outcomes and what happens when you allow herbivores to be involved or not involved with the research project. And what I mentioned there about undisturbed ecosystems is that in a place that isn't requiring active restoration or planting in the ground, herbivory isn't known to have as much of an impact. This, in the past, the introduction or the involvement of herbivores has been thought to improve diversity. And the reasons for this are that some plants grow quickly and shade out other plants, leading to decreased diversity because only the tall, quick-growing plants end up surviving. And the idea was, if you have herbivores, then those quick-growing plants will be chomped down and the slower-growing plants will have a chance to grow at similar rates, improving biodiversity outcomes. However, this was not the case. Managing herbivory is best done by excluding predators Managing herbivory is best accomplished by excluding predators, by excluding herbivores, or by introducing predators. So this is an interesting thing that can be done that the researchers talk about in order to, on a large scale, improve the exclusion of herbivores. Either keep them out or introduce something that will eat them. And they found that just managing herbivores was more impactful than any other type of treatment. That includes managing competition between plants or facilitating the growth of some or other plants. So when you exclude herbivores and allow things to come back on their own, you have improved restoration. Researchers who are doing this project were inspired because in their area where they were living, they saw herbivorous crabs eating all of the salt marsh restoration plants that had been put into the ground. And they want to see what it's like on a global scale. How big of an impact do herbivores have? So if you're involved in a local restoration project, you can assess whether you're doing what needs to be done to exclude herbivores. And if you're not involved in a local restoration project, then why not get involved in a local restoration project? I can guarantee there's probably one going on in your area that's being maintained by folks who have been doing it for 20 to 30 years. And as grouchy as they may seem, they could definitely do with some assistance. Another thing about these young stems from all different sorts of plants in restoration projects is that they're very nutritious. So young stems generally don't have as many chemical defenses, and that's what makes them more palatable to herbivores. So they'll go for these small stems and things. And also, plants in degraded areas tend to attract herbivores that are not very picky eaters and will mow most things down. So that is that on restoration. However, as a caveat, there are some cases where it's good to have herbivores. It's just important to exclude them at the start. but the researchers note that you should look at the whole ecosystem and try to have natural predators present where possible to help control herbivores. And that has been the Research Corner. Okay, I asked on the Instagram page, what are your favorite houseplants? And I got one response, which was Monstera, because they're easy to keep alive, which I will say is true. I've got Monstera rubber plant and a dragon tree and an orchid and a peace lily. And I've managed to keep them all alive. And for the most part, if you're watering them and being sure to change the pot in time, then you're pretty much good to go, I would say. Yeah, I think rubber plants are one of my favorite ones. Would probably be my favorite house plant. I'd like to get some local plants from my area and see what sort of local plants you can grow indoors. So, yeah, send through your favorite house plants on the Instagram and check in there or anywhere else if you'd like to get more involved with the show. Thanks for checking it out. This has been Eco Show. We're wrapping it up now. It's over. I've gone through everything. I'm sorry, that's it. We're done for today. And thanks for checking in. We'll catch you next time. Bye-bye.